Going to do 7 Aliyahs of Torah reading of Lech Lecha. This is picking up where I started about 2 years ago. I've done at least 2 or 3 of the books of the 5 books, and I've done first two. I did Bereshit and Noach videos, and now I have to. And now I really want to finish what I started quite some time ago. So here we are with the first Aliyah in Lech Lecha, which is generally read in October, sometimes maybe November. And the Lord said to Avram, go forth from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. Now, we left off Noah with an introduction to Avram, but we don't know why. The Torah doesn't tell us why he was told to go to Eretz Canaan. Judaism, of course, maybe not of course, but our oral traditions and our history that was eventually written down have midrashim, legends, so to speak, maybe, not to be disrespectful, but I guess that would be the closest way to translate midrashim, where they give reasons or explanations, stories as to why things in the Bible happened that the Bible doesn't say. When I mean the Bible, I mean the 5 books specifically, to be more concise and precise. So Avram was living in Iraq at that time with his family, and apparently his father was idol worshippers, and we even say that in the Haggadah. And Avram didn't believe in the idols of his father and his father's country, of the countryside, of the people that he lived along. And I guess he was an outcast. So there's different stories, not really for this video, that children are taught, and maybe young adults are taught, and even adults are taught. But mainly they're sort of like kid stories. And I do use air quotes liberally. And the Lord said to Avram, go forth from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. So it's not just that you have to go from your home. You also have to go from your birthplace. Now, what's the difference between that? So it's like, and then from your father's house. So maybe your birthplace isn't where your father's from, right? Or it's not, maybe your father's from a different city, a different land even. So what do you consider your home? Like where, home is where the heart is. So Avram here tells him, you have to go away from that. And I'll make you into a great nation. I'll bless you, and I'll aggrandize your name, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and those who make curses you, and those who curse you, I will curse, and all the families on the earth shall be blessed in you, except for the ones, of course, that are cursing him. So what was Abraham? What did Abram do? What was he doing? Was he like leading a church service? Did he have a synagogue? Or did he have an ashram? Was he your local preacher? Sunday morning television? Did he have a radio program, a podcast, a YouTube video? What was he doing that God selected him like this to make him a great nation? We don't see anywhere in the 5 books of what he actually was doing. Of course, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Judaism fills in these kinds of blanks. Not always, not with every single blank, but this one we definitely have stories that are shared and taught. I encourage people to go seek those out and learn them on your own. And Abram went as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. So now we know how old he was. We know that he wasn't by himself. It was a Lot who was mentioned previously. And let's see who also went with him. And Abraham took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son. So now we're saying who Lot is in relation to him. And all the possessions that they had acquired and the souls they had acquired in Haran. So he did have a congregation. And they went up to the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. So it's not just one thing to make Aliya. It's not one thing to go up. You have to go into, it's not just one thing to like visit, as I suppose. And Abraham passed through the land until the places of Shechem, until the plain of Moriah, and the Canaanites were then in the land. So this is sort of establishing a time period, sort of, we know pretty famously the 7 nations. Sometimes the Torah says it was 6 nations, sometimes all the way up to 10. But the Canaanites were like the dominant nation at this time period in most of the 5 books. Although, of course, many people famously associate, the Hebrews fighting the Philistine. The Philistine were not the dominant nation, at least in Avram's time, it seemingly. And the Lord appeared to Avram and he said, to your seed I will give this land. And he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. So this is like these 4 verses, 4 verses, is the root of everything and every reason why Jews, Hebrews, Christians, and Muslims all have some sort of claim to Eretz Yisrael, because the Jews, of course, claim to be descendant of Abraham later. And also the Muslims claim that he is their forefather, and Ishmael. And also says that Abraham was Ishmael's father. And Ishmael was born first. We're going to read soon. And but what about Lot? We're going to learn about him. And can other people have the land? Could we lose the land? The Torah gets into this whole. I mean, that's later in the Torah. We ended up, and later in history, the Hebrew nation Jews, we ended up losing Eretz Yisrael for 2,000 years, right? So, but we got it back, and now. So here's the beginning of all. Here, literally, Genesis and Bereshit means the beginning. So, if you want to know where things start, here's a good book here's a good for a few chapters to look into. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, where he pitched his tent. Bethel was to the west, and Ai was to the east. And he built an altar to the Lord, and he called in the name of the Lord. And Abram traveled continually, traveling southward. It doesn't say why he did that. What was wrong what was wrong with the east of Bethel, between Bethel and Ai? What was wrong? Why did he move? And then there was a famine in the land, and Avram descended to Egypt. So now we know, like, potentially he understood that there was a famine, and the source of prosperity and food would be in another country, in Egypt. Abraham descended there to join there because there was a famine, was severe in the land. Now it came to pass, when he drew near to come to Egypt, that he said to Sarai his wife, behold, now that I know that you are a woman of fair appearance, and it'll come to pass that the Egyptians see you, that they will say, this is his wife, and they will slay me and let you live. Please say that you are my sister, and or that will go well with me because of you, and that my soul may live because of you. So, this is like one of those sections of the Torah that are like quite controversial, in my opinion, quite hard to understand, quite harder. Of course, there's like explanations around all this, and seemingly the Torah gives the most reasonable to Avram explanation. He just wanted to live, and his wife was apparently very beautiful. Now he's 75, and we're going to learn her age pretty soon. So, I mean, to say that, of course, you could say, well, people lived longer, so 75 might have been the same as 75 today. I mean, there are 75-year-old women that look amazing, but what, and so now we're sort of also establishing that the Egyptians were known to take people's wives and potentially kill the husband over it. So this is kind of establishing a few things, but yet, even despite Abraham knowing this about or thinking he knows this about let's say making this statement about the Egyptians, that they'll want to take her from him violently, he still goes there. He still puts himself in danger. But then his way out of it is to have his wife say that she's his sister. But I don't understand how is that gonna help him? Because if it's his sister, they could still kill him and take her. So I'm not exactly 100% sure about saying a sister would help him. And none of this helps her, of course, So this is a very tough first Aliya. And this is, I guess, a long-waited video. So I will stop it because we actually have finished the first Aliya of Lech Lecha.